The girl had a peculiar habit. Every time they went out, she insisted her boyfriend slap her butt. She thoroughly enjoyed this bizarre behavior. However, when they stepped into the motel, all their actions were captured on camera, and this motel had a notorious name, Hannibal Restaurant. Fans of the macabre, you won't want to miss this film. Penelope, once a stripper at a club, happened to meet Frank, freshly cuckolded, for a $500 sitting fee. They fell in love at first sight. Penelope even dreamed of escaping the club with him, but the club manager saw the scene and Penelope was taken back to the office where she was severely beaten by the manager. Outside, Frank heard her cries for help and burst through the door. Before the manager could react, Frank had already grabbed a handgun from the desk. The manager didn't think this coward would dare to fire. Yet, a man in love, Frank was fearless and blew off the manager's left hand. Penelope, while crying, stuffed the cash into her pockets, and together, they fled with the manager's safe. By the time the manager gave chase, it was too late, but he memorized their license plate number. Unexpectedly, they swapped the money for a supercar on the way. Just then, not far from them, a sedan suddenly broke down on the roadside. Not only was it hot here, but there was also no signal. The girl hadn't even called for roadside assistance when, coincidentally, a tow truck appeared behind her. Molly instinctively rolled up the car window. Cleve said it would take only 10 minutes to fix, but Molly, still wary, outright refused his help. Cleve didn't force the issue but headed for the trailer, betting that Molly would call out to him. Sure enough, Molly fell for it and accepted Cleve's help. But Cleve said there was no spare tire in the trunk and that the car needed to be towed for repairs. In this desolate place, Molly had no choice but to agree to Cleve's terms, even taking the passenger seat next to him. Cleve, with a belly full of tricks, deliberately placed a toolbox on the seat, forcing them to sit close together. Cleve kept intentionally touching Molly's skin, causing her great alarm. Thankfully, they soon arrived at the auto repair shop. Molly seized the moment Cleve stopped the car to call her dad. But Cleve noticed. He didn't trouble Molly but instead gave her a motel key. It seemed this guy had fallen for the girl before him. At this moment, Penelope and Frank also arrived at the motel, only to run into Cleve dealing with a body.
Can I help you? Just looking for a room.
Honeymoon suite if you got one.
Yeah, if you got it. And a fill-up.
They didn't notice the body Cookie had just dragged away and naively checked in. Cookie also takes the opportunity to pull the body out, which is obviously a girl and has lost one of her high heels. Cookie dragged the girl into the cold storage, where they kept their food supplies. Molly seemed to hear something and walked to the window, just in time to see Cookie carrying a human leg. Cookie noticed her and ran back. He reported this to Cleve. The next moment there was a knock on the door of Molly's room. Cleve, seemingly fond of Molly, not only refrained from violence but also tried to be gentler. But Molly behind the door was already crying in fear. The arrival of a car interrupted them. A man with white hair got out of the car. He seemed very familiar with the motel and went straight to Penelope's room, even taking a deep sniff of her shorts. Then, Chizos found Frank and Penelope in the lobby, completely ignoring Frank's presence and scrutinizing Penelope. Chizos bluntly proposed that Penelope bear his child, offering her a substantial reward if she agreed. Originally a club dancer, Penelope naturally wouldn't miss such a good opportunity to make money.
So, if any of that interests you, then get up and head out to the white car.
Penelope actually let go of Frank's hand and walked towards the car outside, with Chizos leaving the bar arrogantly. Frank, in disbelief, followed them, and watching the car drive towards the villa, he returned to his room, dejected. But upon opening the door, it turned out Penelope hadn't left with Chizos. She just wanted to surprise Frank. They eagerly tumbled into the sheets. This scene was also witnessed by Chizos, thoroughly infuriating him. While checking other surveillance footage, he discovered Molly had made a distress call during the day, which instantly put him on high alert. Chizos found Cleve, and Mabel hurriedly explained that Molly's dad had returned 19 calls and that he was the local sheriff. Upon hearing this, Chizos decided to kill the sheriff en route. Thus, he instructed Cleve and his wife to intercept the sheriff's car. This scene was coincidentally discovered by Molly, who then secretly hid in Penelope's car. After waiting on the road for 2 hours, the sheriff indeed appeared. Cleve quickly grabbed Mabel's hair, pretending to be in a heated argument. The sheriff stopped his car, intending to break up their fight, but as he was about to deal with Cleve,
What is wrong? What?
Penelope and Frank, who stayed at the hotel, were also in danger when Cookie secretly slipped sleeping pills into their breakfast. Magda, who still had some conscience, stopped them from drinking the coffee she was about to serve. Seeing this, Cookie pulled out a gun. Unexpectedly, Frank also had a handgun and was ready to confront Cookie. He didn't realize that Cookie was such a coward and instantly gave in. Frank grabbed the gun and fled the motel with Penelope. Chizos arrived late at this point. He did not rush to pursue but watched the direction in which the car fled. After confirming that Frank turned right, Chizos slowly picked up the phone, knowing this direction was exactly where Cleve was. As they passed each other, Cleve, driving a police car, gave chase. Penelope, unaware of who was in the car, thought they were real police and pulled over. The situation quickly turned tragic. Molly, hiding in the back, witnessed everything. Just when she was about to be discovered, she ditched the car and ran into the desert. Mabel, calm and collected, pulled out a 98K rifle. Cleve, somewhat afraid of his wife, although fond of Molly, had no choice but to capture her and bring her back. In the end, 2 cars, carrying all those who had fled, returned to the motel once again. Cookie's responsibility was to dismember bodies and store food. Maybe the girls' meat was more flavorful and they only left the women this time. Cleve threw Frank into a 5-meter deep pit, not forgetting to take the wooden board with him when he left. While Cleve was diligently working, Chizos suddenly appeared and embraced Mabel. Clearly, there was some unspeakable mischief between them. Cleve, having just returned, witnessed this but chose not to reveal himself and quietly left the scene. Shortly after, Mabel came to the basement and took a hose handed to her by Cookie. With just a look from Cookie, Magda hurriedly turned on the tap in fright. Mabel woke Penelope with cold water. Mabel envied her figure and looks, for their backgrounds were very similar. Penelope was a club dancer, while Mabel was a battleship woman, essentially no different in nature. What only made Mabel feel dejected was her age, and that Chizos specifically wanted Penelope to warm his bed, making Mabel feel as if Penelope had stolen her place. In the evening, the 5 of them gathered for dinner. After a hearty meal, Chizos went to the wall. Frank, inside, was figuring out how to escape, but no matter how he jumped, he was always at least 2 meters short. At that moment, Chizos leisurely approached from above. Chizos wanted to shatter Frank's heart. He said a club dancer could not have true love, urging Frank to face reality, saying Penelope changing her mind was only a matter of time. Moreover, he wanted to recruit Frank into his team. There was a barrel of pure water in the pit but no food. If Frank wanted to survive, he would have to gnaw on the surrounding corpses.
If you touch her, I swear to God, somehow, someday, I will find you.
Chizos was used to seeing people who talk tough. In the end, they either died of starvation or became his slaves. He arrogantly left the place and then approached Penelope, who, like Frank, was worried about the other. Chizos didn't resort to violence. He wanted to psychologically dismantle them, making them willingly become his slaves, just like Cleve and the others before them.
I could love you. If you let me. Think about it.
After saying this, Chizos left the basement. At night, Molly woke up, horrified at the sight of her father shot in the head. But fortune favors the bold. She found a handgun in her father's trouser leg. Just as she was preparing to leave, she saw Cleve dealing with Mabel. Cleve actually strangled Mabel to death, then slowly approached Molly and even opened the car door, indicating he was letting Molly leave. Molly didn't care how Cleve had a change of heart. She quickly escaped from there, but Cleve, deep down, feared Chizos. Knowing he couldn't escape, he hanged himself in front of Frank in the pit, and Frank, using Cleve's body, escaped from there, prepared to rescue Penelope. In the dungeon, Penelope suddenly found a nail on the floor and quietly slipped it into her pants. Seeing Cookie eating in front of her, Penelope stood up and played the seductress. Which man could withstand such a test? Cookie was instantly fooled, but he was still cautious. He first put a shackle on Penelope's leg before letting her out. The outcome is predictable. Penelope drove a long nail entirely into Cookie's head, and Frank burst through the door at that moment. Just as they were about to escape, Magda dialed Chizos' number. Though Magda had a shred of conscience, her deep-seated fear made her subconsciously think of Chizos. As they were fleeing, Magda also chased after them. She drew a smiley face on the ground, meaning she wanted Penelope to leave and not end up as miserable as herself. Penelope understood her meaning. Just as they left, Chizos came out, He still didn't rush to chase but prayed the car would turn left, because the left fork could allow him to quickly intercept them. Seeing Chizos appear on the road, Frank also stopped the car. Unclear about Chizos' scheme, Chizos slowly raised his hands, and in a second, the car stalled. Chizos seemed to have anticipated all this and calmly walked towards Frank. After several attempts, the car finally started again, and Chizos stopped. This time, Frank wasn't afraid anymore and floored the gas pedal. Chizos made another gesture of supernatural power. This was kind of funny. I thought Chizos really had superpowers. Actually, this movie doesn't have any special highlights, just a bit more explicit, but that doesn't stop the guys from liking it. Many people messaged me wanting to see this film. Hit follow for more exciting updates.